This border war, fans called it Moonshine Throwdown. I think that's the best rivalry name, an unofficial name, but the best rivalry name I've come across.
Yeah, unofficial that should become official soon enough.
Embrace it.
Green keeps it himself, looking for the end zone. Isaiah Green, touchdown! Quarterback keeper for 17, and Marshall back up by 2 touchdowns.
Story toward Jackson, got separation to the 20, to the 10, and he will go. Lucky Jackson from 54 yards out. After a Western Kentucky record 16 catches a week ago, he gives the Hilltoppers the early lead today.
Pressure off the edge. Screen delivers. What a catch for Levias, who brings it in. Armani Levias to the house. Touchdown, Marshall.
And will 46 come on the field? Yes, he will. Corey Munson, the freshman, the true freshman out of Warner Robins, Georgia. As long as 48. This will be from 52 yards. From the far hash mark, John Haggerty, the punter, will hold. Jared Nash will snap it. It's definitely long enough. It is good! Unbelievable. The true freshman, Corey Munson, hammers it home from 52 yards. What a clutch kick there to win the ball game.
Welcome back to the Moonshine Throwdown podcast. Tonight is a special herd-only edition of Position Group Breakdowns. Trace and I are going to be talking about that herd offensive line, and then we're going to be diving into the herd running backs. But don't worry, though, Hilltopper fans. Stephen and I will be bringing you a Position Group Breakdowns episode with the Western Kentucky offensive line and their stable of running backs as well. But tonight, it's all Marshall. Follow us on Twitter at MoonshineTD. And follow the podcast at MSTD_podcast. Please subscribe to the show so you don't miss an episode. You can find us anywhere, but mainly on Spotify, iHeartRadio, and, of course, Apple Podcast. So let's talk about offensive line trades. Phil still ranks the unit number 1 in Conference USA. They had a national ranking, too. I had it on my paper, but my page flipped away. Hold on just 1 second. National ranking of 46th. Anytime you can get that national ranking by individual unit from Phil Steele, you know you've got a lot of really, really good players.
Yep.
As a matter of fact, even one of the individuals garnered one of those top draft eligible player spots that Phil still puts out by position. That, of course, is Josh Ball, the monster of a man, in his second year with Marshall. Former Florida State Seminole, went to the JUCO ranks and then joined the herd last year. Had a pretty productive year, so he's one of those we're going to be talking about here in a second. But Trace, let's talk about those 5 guys. I'm going to run down them real quick, give you some heights and weights, and then we'll talk about them individually as well as some of those guys that have been working their way up the depth chart that we could see mix in and out at various positions on the offensive line. So we've got to start where the biggest hole lies, and that's, of course, having to replace 3-year All-Conference USA performer, 4-year starter, Marshall all-time great, center, fan favorite, Moonshine Throwdown favorite, Levi Brown. And stepping in to fill that hole is another senior, Alex Millette. Millette's a great offensive lineman. He's just not had to play center since Levi Brown had been such an anchor on that line for the last 4 years. So he'll slide into the center spot, 6'3", 290-pounder. Right guard, Kane Madden, another senior, 6'3", 338-pounder. Madden has gotten a lot of attention during the course of late 2018, all of 2019, and has had some preseason pub here in 2020. So definitely a fast riser on the Marshall offensive line for sure. Left guard, Will Ulmer, another senior, 6'5", 300-pounder. Tarek Adams, senior, 6'4", 333 at right tackle. Right tackle, and at left tackle, the aforementioned Josh Ball, senior. Did you catch that senior for the herd. 6'8", 350 pounds. Good luck moving that guy out of the way. Let's talk about those 5 guys, Trace. What do you like about them? Who sticks out to you? Where do you what are the strengths? Is the strength more in run blocking, pass blocking? Are they just an all around good line? I mean, let's talk about these guys. 5 seniors. Wow, that is rare in today's college football world.
Yeah, I mean, I like everything about these guys, to tell you the truth. I mean, that's the first thing I was going to say. If you just look at the list, I mean, you're going down the list. That's 5 seniors. That is 5 seniors starting in an offensive line. That's strong. And anywhere, in any level of college football, that's strong. That's going to resonate. And, looking at a little closer to the offensive line, last year, heading into the season, they had 111 career starts heading in. That's actually more this year without Levi Brown. It's up to 126 this year in career starts. So this line is extremely seasoned, very good. I mean, all these guys are just top-notch players as far as I'm concerned. I mean, of course, losing Levi Brown's a huge loss because he's a 4-year starter and one of the better lineman centers Marshall's ever had. But they have guys that can fill the void. I mean, it's going to be interesting to see Millette at center. I'm sure he's capable. I have no doubt about it. He's a really good player. He's battled injuries over in the past. He's back now, at 100%. So I expect good things from him at the center position. And then Josh Ball, like we said, I mean, it's like I don't know, Andre the Giant type guy, 6'8", 350 pounds. I mean, that's just a really tough guy to try to block or get past. But no, I mean, I think this line is one of the last episodes that we did. I think it was actually the last episode of the position group breakdowns we did. I said, I think all positions, all units of the team have question marks and have possible concerns outside of maybe 1 or 2 positions. Well, one of the 2 positions is the offensive line for me. I don't think there's any concerns there at all. Now, I mean, you could look at the center situation a little differently, but I don't think that's going to be a concern. I think this line's stellar, and I think the only thing that you can remotely criticize it for is the guys waiting behind those might be a little more experienced. But other than that, this line is extremely talented and absolutely deserves the number 1 ranking still gave him for Conference USA.
Yeah, so we're talking about Josh Ball. He's the one, of course, that landed in the top draft-eligible players, number 31 on Phil Steele's top 75 draft-eligible tackles. But let's be honest, Kane Madden is gotten so much attention over the last season and a half. If he puts together a solid senior campaign, there's no doubt that he's got the talent to get drafted or to at least play in the NFL. And the same goes for a lot of these other guys. Will Ulmer has been a plug-and-play type guy. He's played several positions since he's been at Marshall, and he's been really successful in all of them. Tarek Adams, he's one of those guys that seems like he's been at Marshall forever.
Yeah.
But a very under-the-radar dude, and usually that's a good thing for an offensive lineman because it means you're doing your job. You're not sticking out by giving up the sacks or, not being able to pick up the blocks the right way or whatever. I mean, Marshall's just got a lot of very consistent, talented, all-around good guys. Now, what would you say is their primary talent? Are they best at run blocking, or are they best at pass blocking, or is it just really doesn't matter? They're just that darn good.
Yeah, I mean, I think they're really good at both, honestly. Opening up running lanes and protecting the quarterback. I mean, last year, look at all the numbers they put up running the ball. Brendan Knox had almost 1,400 yards. The running game was really good. It was the best it's been in several years, and that was behind the shoulders of the offensive line. I mean, there's no denying that. They wouldn't have been able to run the ball as well as they did without that O-line last year. And, I mean, I think the same will be had this year, and actually then some. I think the running game will be even better than it was last year, and I'll hit on that here later on. But no, I mean, and of course, and then it was 2017 that they were number 4 in the country in sacks allowed, I believe, and like they've always been the last couple of years, 2 or 3 years, they've been strong at that. So I think it's just going to be more of the same, honestly. And I was running through the weights of all these linemen and averaged them out. They averaged 322 pounds per man. That's strong. That's a very big line. That's probably maybe the biggest in terms of overall average size and weight or whatever you would have you. That might be the biggest they've had in a long time. Because a lot of guys, they've had guys that were like 290, 285, These guys, for the most part, these are some big boys that are 320-plus pounds. I mean, it's a big line. So I expect real good things from them.
Yeah, I do too. I don't know how any Herd fan couldn't expect good things from them. They've shown most of these same guys, maybe not this exact same 5 at any given time, but all these 5 guys at some particular time with Levi Brown in some combination show that they can open big holes for Brendan Knox, for Sheldon Evans, or for whoever may be toting the rock. They've shown that they can keep people off of the Herd quarterbacks long enough for plays to develop. So you got to like what you got here. This is definitely a bona fide earned number 1 spot in the conference. So let's talk about the guys on the depth chart behind these 5. Now, there are a few names that Herd fans will be familiar with because there are 2 or 3, maybe 4 guys that have seen some significant game action, but after that, it's real youth movement. Guys like Alex Seguero, who've played 13 games in 2018, 7 games in 2017. He's got 20-some games under his belt. I mean, that's nothing to sneeze at. So you've got James, I don't know if it's McGee or Maggie. I don't know exactly how you say that, but he's played in, 10 games in 2018, 12 games in 2019. There's just a lot of Seguero had 13 games last year as well. So he's over 30 games of action. But after that, it starts trickling down a little bit. You start seeing some of these younger guys that were in heavy recruiting classes from a couple of years ago that are finally now getting up into that 2 deep and going to be forced into a little bit more action. Sean Barron's a guy that's been on the roster for 4 years. He's a senior, but he's battled through numerous season-ending injuries. So it's nice to see Sean potentially healthy and able to make one real go at it in a injury-free season to see what actually he can do. I think he got in and played a little bit against VMI last year at the beginning of the season. So, some game experience there, but for a guy that's just battled injury and stuck with it, that's just a great story in and of itself. He could have given up any number of times. I mean, after the second season-ending injury, how devastating is that got to be to your psyche? You're like, I worked so hard last year to get back, and now it's happened again. But he's battled through it, and he's right there on the 2 deep. Ethan Ingram, freshman. Logan Osborne, local kid, redshirt freshman. Tristan Bittner, redshirt freshman. Chris Everhart, freshman. Jack Murphy, freshman. You see the theme here. It starts to get really young, really quick after Seguero and McGee or Maggie. Dalton Tucker's in there. He played a little bit, 6'6", 305. He's a sophomore. Couple games last year as a true freshman. I'm sorry, as a redshirt freshman. But it's a lot of freshmen, sophomores, redshirt freshmen. So you better hope these guys do stay healthy. You can take a lick or two, but after that, you need somebody to step up. It's not to say these guys can't play. They just haven't had the opportunity to because Marshall's been, really good at the 2 deep for the past couple of years. So what about these younger guys? Who sticks out to you, maybe in just a measurables type of way? Who looks the part? I mean, who are you excited to see maybe take that next leap? I'll tell you who I'm excited to if you don't have somebody right off the bat. It's Dalton Tucker for me. I mentioned a minute ago, 6'6", 305-pounder. And Ethan Driscoll, actually, 6'9", 319. Woo! That's some big dudes right there. You know what I'm saying?
Yes.
So, those guys are forced into action. I mean, at least you got the luxury of a super large frame to try to have to move around to get to the quarterback. So, who do you like best, I guess? Who sticks out to you? Who you think's poised to make a big leap here after these starters?
Well, I think the two names you just mentioned right there are definitely names to keep in mind for the future. I mean, you got to remember it wasn't that long ago that these guys that we're praising right now were in the same position, and now look at them. So, I mean,
Right.
all it takes is some development in the weight room and some coaching and just all that good stuff, and then they can be right in this position, and I think they will be. Aren't they both like West Virginia kids, like, or at least one of them?
I think actually both of these kids. I thought both of these guys were Kentucky kids. Honestly,
Okay.
they may not be.
The names sound familiar. I just thought maybe, I don't know, maybe I'm just thinking of something else. But
Dude, Marshall recruits offensive linemen out of Kentucky like it's a requirement for fielding a football team. I mean,
pretty much, yeah.
They get so much offensive line talent out of the state of Kentucky. It's almost unfair. It makes you wonder how these guys slip through the cracks and land at Marshall. Not knocking the herd, but how they find these guys that are so good. You talk about development and being in the weight room. Offensive line is a position that Marshall has consistently churned out a quality unit since the dawn of the Doc Holliday era, honestly. After he had an opportunity to get the depth in there and get the recruiting where it needed to be, it's been a solid unit. Alex Mirabal and then now to Coach Greg Atkins. I mean, the continuity really has been there. Two totally different coaches, but they've continued to field good lines. And, even when Marshall struggled back in 2016, they still had a pretty good offensive line. It's just, the wheels fell off. So what are you going to do?
Yeah. They pretty like piggyback off of that. All these lines that they've had since about 2012 or 13 have been top notch, really.
Yeah.
I mean, there's not been really any real down years. I mean, 2016, the line, they battled some injuries. I think wasn't Clinton Van Horn still there at that point, and I know he was injured all the time at that point, and he had a redshirt year, and they had some young guys. So other than that, though, I mean, if you just look back at their last few years, I mean, it's been really, really good stuff that they've done.
Yeah, it has been. So it's definitely one that the herd's been able to hang their hat on and feel good about whatever five guys they trot out there. They've seemingly been able to produce at a high level for a decade, give or take a year. So I know the answer to this one, but I'm going to ask you anyway. Off of the guy, well, I guess we got to talk. Was Levi the only guy that's gone from this line from a year ago?
According to Phil Still, it's the only name he had on there.
Well, that's pretty easy to talk about who the biggest loss is. And even if there were 10 guys that happened to graduate, I still think Levi would probably be the biggest loss off of this line. So we'll pencil that one in. Levi Brown, biggest loss from the unit of 2020.
I think we can all agree on that one.
Safest call of the position group breakdown series.
Yep.
All right. So who are you most excited to see this year in this position group?
Josh Ball. I mean, I was excited. I think it was exactly the same answer last year for who I'm most excited to see. I think it's the same this year. I think that, like you said, I mean, he's listed as a potential draftee there at the offensive line position. I mean, that's big time because Marshall, I don't think they've had an offensive lineman drafted in a long time. Like, it's probably been, I think the last one might have been Garrett Scott. Yeah. And that would have been like 2013, 2014, something like that. But so, like, they don't have a lot of offensive linemen drafted, and like Josh Ball absolutely fits that mold, I think. I mean, what don't you like in a guy like that as an offensive lineman? I mean, 6'8", that's basically a power forward. 350 pounds, that's basically a center. Like, I mean, what is going on here? Like, the guy's just like a monster. So, I think he's going to have a fantastic year that probably could land him on first team all conference. I would expect first or second team all conference for him. So I'm most excited to see him, especially in year 2 that he's got a year under his belt playing. He didn't always start last year, but this year, he's going to be the starter. So I'm looking forward to seeing him the most.
Well, I mean, I would like to echo that, but I think everybody really is excited to see him. So it's kind of unfair to just – that's like to give an answer. I'll tell you, I'm excited to see two things, really. I'm excited to see – or intrigued is really the more accurate adjective. I'm intrigued to see the Millette transition to center and see how that goes now that we have to throw in the wild card of – a brand new quarterback, whoever that will be, at Marshall. So he's not only moving back into the position, but any kind of chemistry he may have had with Isaiah Green is gone. So it'll be whoever it is at quarterback that have to build some chemistry. So that's intriguing. Now, who am I most excited to see? I'm excited to see if the solid rising trajectory of Kane Madden continues. And if he can put himself in a position to be talked about amongst those draft quality, I guess you would say, offensive linemen at season's end. Or, if he's one of those guys, I still think he's the type of guy that could, sign a free agent deal. But when you talk about getting drafted, it's just one of those things that guys want to have happen. Even if it may not necessarily be the best thing for their chances in the league, versus signing a free agent deal with any number of teams where you may fit in the best and have the best chance to make a roster. Guys just want to get drafted. So I'd like to see if Kane Madden can put together another solid season and put himself in the conversation as somebody worth a draft pick to some NFL team. Who's going to be your MVP for the 2020 season?
Yeah, this one was difficult just because, they have so many good players on that line, but I ended up going with Kane Madden. I think he's getting the most pub probably. Well, him and Josh Ball probably getting the most pub headed into the season. Phil still has him as a first-team all-conference player. I think he ended up being that last year as well, so I think this is going to be his best year to date. I think it's needed now with Levi Brown gone. Now, granted, he's not going to be playing center, but they're going to need to have a guy step up to be that unquestioned leader on the line, and it could be Kane Madden because he's been here for a long time. Seemingly, he's had a lot of good moments, and he's had quiet kind of. I feel like this is kind of a reoccurring theme. He's kind of had quiet success to an extent. Last year he ended up on first team, but before that it was a little more just you didn't always remember that he was out there. But yeah, the guy's been extremely productive. He's a really good player. And I think this will be his best year so far as a senior. It's what Doc always says. One of the 5 or 6 things Doc says constantly is seniors playing their best football. So I'm gonna roll with that one, Doc. So Kane Madden.
I think I'm gonna have to agree. He's just been the symbol of consistency and hard work and development and whatever other adjective you want to throw in a positive manner. Kane Madden's just been that for the last season and a half since he had his real opportunity to grab a hold of a spot and not have to relinquish it. He really hasn't. So he's made the most of the opportunity when his name was called. And, dude, he just keeps, like I said, shooting up the productivity charts. His name just keeps getting mentioned more and more and more. So I think he, at season's end, will look back and call him the MVP of the 2020 season. How about a breakout player this year? Who's going to be – tough to be a breakout player when you got 5 seniors starting on the line. But who's your breakout guy for 2020?
That's exactly what I was thinking when I was looking down this list. I was like, well, who are you going to call a breakout? They've been here for 4 years, but – most of them. But my breakout player is Alex Millett just because of what we've already talked about. It's a new position. He's a center now. He's the new Levi Brown. So I think he's gonna have a breakout year in that new role because they've been so reliant on Levi Brown over the last 4 years at center that they haven't had to worry about anybody else. But now that he's gone, they're gonna have to really trust Millett back there, and I think he's gonna pass with flying colors. I think he's going to be really good. I'm not saying he's going to be as good as Levi Brown was, but I think he's going to be more than serviceable center this year, and I think it's going to be definitely breakoutish. It's guy that you want to see him have a really good senior year because he has battled injuries. He's pretty much missed a whole season or close to it with injury. So I hope to see him have a really good year. I think he will. So my breakout player is Alex Millett. Yeah,
it's a good pick. I think I'm going to go with Millett as well, but just kind of piggybacking off of what you said, saying he has to be the next Levi Brown. See, this is one of those things in sports to me that I don't know. I know what you meant by that, but when I hear that, what always triggers in my head is you don't want to be the next this guy. You want to be the first. You want to be the first Alex Millett, right? Yeah. So you want to make people remember you for what you did. And that's the way I feel about that. And I think he's got the ability and the attitude and the talent, whatever you want to call it, to be the next great Marshall center, even if it's just for a year.
Yeah, that's what I was going to say. It was the next Levi Brown,
Right.
kind of more meaning the next great stud center, because
Right.
Levi Brown was, if you think about it, Levi Brown was the new Chris Jaspers. He was the next Chris Jaspers, and it just trickles down. So that's definitely the meaning of that one, Alex Millette.
Yeah, I know you meant no slight by that, but whenever I hear that, that's just what triggers to me. It's like, I don't want to be that guy. I want to be the guy that you remember for what I did, you know? So, is it hot take time already?
It is.
Oh my God. It's hot take time already for the 2020 offensive line. All right, have at it. Let's see what you got.
This is a 3-part hot take.
Three-part? Holy moly.
3 parts. You better believe it. So, 3 parts. So, first part is, which I had one similar to this last year, but this is just one part of the equation here. So, they will open up running lanes to the tune of 200-plus rushing yards a game. They're going to average 200 yards rushing a game. Offensive line is going to create that. Last year, they averaged 193 a game. I think they'll get 200 this year. That's just part one of the mild take there. Part two is they will be number 1 in Conference USA in sacks allowed, which they've done in the past. I think that will be the case again. The only reason that I would question that is whoever the quarterback's going to be might not be as adept at avoiding pressure. I don't know, but I think the O-line will help that quarterback out tremendously. So that's part 2. Part 3 is they will have 2 offensive linemen on first team all Conference USA this year, at least 2. I don't know how many they usually have, probably 5 or something like that, but total. But I think that they'll have at least 2. I mean, I'm not going to say 3 or 4 because that's highly unlikely.
Even if they had that, the coaches wouldn't vote it that way.
Coaches wouldn't vote it that way.
Yeah.
So I'm going with at least 2 on the first team, probably being Josh Ball and Kane Madden if I was to guess. I mean, it could be really any of them. So that's my 3-part hot take for the O-line.
Yeah, well, they had 2 on the first team, all-conference team last year, so that's not that much of a stretch, to be honest with you. I was going to say that they would I don't have a 3-part epic, this isn't the Iliad. I don't have any an epic story from my hot take, but I was going to say that they will land 3 guys on the first and second team, all-conference teams. So we were kind of like-minded with that. I just like to include a few more potential spots. But yeah, I think it's not out of the question for 60% of Marshall's line to be first and second team all conference players, without a doubt. Could be more. You know, it could easily be more, but it just depends on, if Brendan Knox goes out and rushes for 2,000 yards, it's going to be real hard not to recognize that offensive line for the job they did.
Oh yeah.
You know what I mean? So let's talk about the running back unit for Marshall. Trace, looks like it's poised to be a good one. I guess anytime you've got a runner like Brendan Knox, it freaking should be. Phil still ranks the running back unit tied in looks like a 3-way tie for second in Conference USA, with Middle Tennessee and UAB, FAU claiming the number 1 spot, whatever, and Western Kentucky 5th in Conference USA. So let's talk about that second-rated Marshall running back unit. That's basically Brendan Knox and everybody else. No disrespect to everybody else, but it's the greatness of Brendan Knox. Okay, that's what this is all about. Since he burst on the scene in the latter half of 2018?
Yep.
Is that what it was?
Yep.
Like gangbusters. He has just not stopped running the damn ball. So, let's talk about him, man. Number 2 in the conference. Phil still ranks this unit nationally once again. Number 49 in the country. So, again, anytime you can get a national ranking from Phil Steele, you got some talent in the backfield. So let's talk about it. Start wherever you want to start. Of course, it's going to be with Brendan Knox. I lost my page. Hang with me, everybody. The 6 foot, 220 pound junior, of course, going to be your day 1 starter. Rightfully so, deservedly so. Already an all-timer at running back for Marshall, without a doubt, just to see, what else he's got left to dazzle with. So let's talk about it, and then we'll talk about everybody else.
Well, yeah, it's like I said before. I think there's 1 or 2 positions that I don't really worry about heading into the season. Running back is one of them. and that's basically solely on the shoulders of Brendan Knox. And I have a lot of confidence in Sheldon Evans as well. I've been pretty high on him the last year or so, and last year he showed flashes of what he's capable of doing, and I think he's a really solid number 2 running back. And he proved that last year, and I think he will be better this year, and I think Knox will ultimately be better this year. If you look at his numbers from last year, almost 1,400 yards. He had 270 carries. I would not be surprised in the slightest if he stays healthy. If he does not, he will probably eclipse 300 carries this year. I don't think that's a bold take at all because, we know Marshall's quarterback situations are very up in the air right now with Isaiah Green gone. We don't even know who it's going to be. So, that's probably going to put way more focus on the running game. There was a lot of focus on it last year because the passing game was so inconsistent. But this year, there's just so many unknowns with the quarterback position that I think Knox will get leaned on heavily. Last year there was a couple of points of the season during the podcast wrap-ups that we did that I said they're almost trying to run him into the ground. They're giving him so many carries, and they had to give him that many carries. I remember games where he's had 25, he's had 30, he's had 30-plus last year. The guy's it's just a workhorse kind of running back. And he doesn't ever look like he ever shows any signs of slowing down from start to finish. He doesn't wear down. It doesn't look like he just constantly not that I'm going to compare him to Ezekiel Elliott, but it's just it's the same thing. They're just feeding him constantly. And he always seems like he's fresh-legged. And I think that's going to be more of the same this year. I think he probably could easily eclipse 300 carries. I have a certain number in mind that I would like to see him get in rushing yards, which we'll get to that later. But it's not just Knox and Evans. I think Lawrence Papillon will get in there a little bit more this year. I think he's got a potential to be a solid third option. If Evans gets hurt or if Knox gets hurt, Papillon's going to be in the rotation. So there's no doubt about it. So I think all 3 of those guys are capable. But, yeah, of course this running back unit is led by Brendan Knox until he's off the team. So there you go.
Yeah, without a doubt. Brendan Knox is a national name at the moment. He can't hide from anybody. When they keep flashing up these graphics most rushing yards since whatever, and he's 5th or, what – you just can't hide from that. The production is there, and he's putting together these numbers in a season and a half. It's not 3 years worth of running. It's a season and a half. So we wondered last year at the position group breakdowns, would Brendan Knox be able to break out and have that breakout year based on what we saw from the last half of, 2018 with almost 600 yards rushing in 6 games or something like that. And boy, did he ever. Almost 1,400 yards. You're right. At some games, he single-handedly won the game. Because he had to. Because they needed the big run, or they needed him to make a big play or to extend a drive or whatever, and he was able to. So he set a career high against Florida Atlantic last year, 220 yards. So he's got the majority of that yardage came in the fourth quarter of that game. So you can see, half too. Yeah, so you can see that he's not an early game runner and just tends to fade off at the end of the game. He really doesn't seem to get fatigued. No. So when the Marshall offensive line has beaten up a defensive line all game long, or whatever the case may be, and softened them up, so to speak, that's when he starts becomes really, really dangerous, because he can just gash you when you're already, tired. Yep. I always like to compare guys to other guys from that same team, and Brendan Knox has always looked like he's cut from the similar cloth as Ahmad Bradshaw. They just kind of run the same. They run a little bit angry. Ahmad Bradshaw's the angriest runner I've ever seen in the college game, and he's just so fun to watch. Brendan Knox is a little bit different than that, but he still runs with a purpose. You can tell he's running for a reason. He's not just
Chapman too, maybe.
Yeah, he's just not toting the ball, trying to get a yard here and a yard there, maybe bust one for 4 or whatever. He's running with a purpose. He's trying to bust it loose every single play, and it's no coincidence that he's really good at busting long runs. So he's hard to bring down. He is what he is. He's as advertised. He's a known entity right now. You talk about Sheldon Evans, 5'11", 196-pounder. Redshirt junior, capable runner is really a knock because he's far more than a capable runner. He's shown that if he had to take the lion's share of carries, you might see a little bit of a dip in productivity from Brendan Knox because, God, why wouldn't you? I mean, Brendan Knox is not your average runner, but still, Sheldon Evans averaged 5.4 yards a carry. Knox averaged 5.1. So there's still a lot of explosiveness there. There's a lot of ability there in the two deep. And you mentioned a guy, Lawrence Papillon. He got into the game a little bit last year. Actually, he appeared in 9 games, but he didn't have very much yardage. But the average was pretty good, 5.7 yards per carry. And another guy that you could see busting in there, really, Knowledge McDaniel. Came out of high school, highly touted. He's a sophomore now from Bradenton, Florida, not that far away from where I'm at. Another 5'11", 206-pounder. So Marshall really has the ability to go with a 4-headed monster with Brendan Knox leading the charge. So they honestly really have a thundering herd in the running back room, to be honest with you. I know that's a cheesy kind of pun, but they do. They got 4 guys that could be game breakers right here. And I'm also with you. This is the other unit that I had no worries about. Offensive line and running back, I was not worried about for Marshall at all. At all. They could take an injury and still be okay at both of those positions. Or in both of those units, I mean. So let's talk about who's the biggest loss from 2020 or from 2019.
I mean, can you say Tyler King? Because
I guess you can, yeah.
Because he was really only there for 2 games last year, but I guess you can say it just because he will not be on the depth chart on the team at all heading into the season. So I think by default, obviously it's Tyler King because they don't lose anybody else.
Yeah.
King was really good for a couple of years. Like he really had a really bright future, but it just didn't work out last year. And quite frankly, him not working out last year is a big reason why Brendan Knox had the season that he had. I don't think there's any denying that. I mean, if they were splitting carries like they did the year before, Knox probably would have had quite a bit less yardage. But, I mean, it doesn't really matter because they're both talented guys. But, I mean, I think Knox, like I said last year, I think Knox is an overall better runner. He's a little better overall package. And he's definitely got his head on straight, and he's definitely a guy that's a great leader. So, but by default, Tyler King's the hardest to replace.
Yeah, I think that's a fair statement because if things could have just worked out, you could have looked at Marshall as potentially having 2,000-yard runners, right? Yeah. I mean, that's possible. So it's unfortunate that King and Marshall couldn't, make it work, but. We wish him all the best. I still wish him the best. I hope he's finding success wherever he's playing or whatever he's doing. If he is playing, I don't know.
Yep.
But, his departure turned out to be a real blessing for not only just Brendan Knox, but Marshall really, because he's incredibly durable. Let's not forget Knox broke in because King got hurt. That's how we saw Brendan Knox to begin with. So, It's just an unfortunate situation, but yeah, Tyler King is definitely the biggest loss from 2019. So, who is your what do I want to go with this one? All right, who are you most excited to see?
Brendan Knox.
No. Next. MVP.
Brendan Knox.
Next.
Okay,
fair enough. I mean, why beat a dead horse? We know what the guy is. We know he's awesome. Collegiate back. Yeah, he's the most excited player. He's the MVP.
I mean, yeah. I mean, if you want to get real technical, he's the MVP. Of
the conference.
Of the conference, yes. Just to give a little more on him, just because I remember I made this comparison, I think last year, or I might have did it or something, I don't remember. But I think he's the best Marshall running back since Devin Johnson, and I think that's solidified, obvious. I think it's dead obvious, and I stick by that. Now, I mean, me personally, the best single season I've ever seen for a Marshall running back ever was 2014 Devin Johnson. I've never seen one better than that, and I don't know if I ever will, just because that season was literally spectacular. I mean, it was – and he only had 206 carries that year because he missed a little bit of time towards the end of the year. But, my God, what a season. But Knox last year, that was probably Well, I mean, I did see Ahmad Bradshaw, and it got some good seasons out there. But at least in recent memory, that's the second best single season for a Marshall running back that I've seen. It was Knox last year, and I expect more this year, honestly.
Yeah, I mean, there's no reason to think it won't happen. We wondered last year, would he be able to reproduce what he did in the last half of 28, and he absolutely did. Absolutely did, and more. Yeah, and more.
Yeah.
So. Yeah, he's the MVP. He's the most important player in that room. But here's the interesting one. Who's the breakout player? Well, I mean, let's just assume that somebody gets the opportunity to break out, right? I mean, Who's going to be the breakout player? Who do you really like of the three guys that we mentioned other than Knox?
Yeah, I like that you brought up about Knowledge McDaniel. I don't know if he's going to play. I don't know how that's going to be or not. But so he could honestly fit this role. But I went with Lawrence Papillon because of the reason I gave earlier is if Knox or Evans misses any kind of time, Papillon's going to be in the starting two running backs with rotation. He will be there. He will get carries. Same thing with Evans last year. When Tyler King was off the team, it was Evans, and that's pretty much all of Evans' yards is because King was gone last year. So, I mean, I think the same will happen this year. I mean, I don't want to see either of them get hurt, but even if they don't get hurt, I think Papillon could still get in the rotation and running back. And I mean, I'm not going to say he's going to have 500-600 yards, but he could get a couple hundred yards in there. I mean, I think that's possible over the course of the season. And if he has to play significant time, he could get more than that. I mean, we've seen little glimpses of what he has. Seems like he's got good speed. Seems like he could be a quality, running back. But I mean, like you said, you don't ever want to see anybody hurt to where they have to put players in their position, replacing them for an extended period of time. But if they have to do that for any reason, Lawrence Papillon, I think, could fill that role pretty nicely if he gets the opportunity, and he might get it. Nobody knows how the season's going to go. So my breakout player is Lawrence Papillon for this year, although it could be Knowledge McDaniel. It depends on who gets the most carries.
Yeah. So I like to think of that kind of stuff in terms of, you're somebody's just getting an opportunity because there are big leads or whatever. Yeah. And you don't want to talk about it in terms of you're getting dirt stomped, and so you get to put the younger players in. Yeah. But let's think that Marshall's going to go out and have some big leads in some games, and they'll have the luxury of playing some of these younger backs. And when you talk about a guy breaking out, that's what I want to see. If he's only going to get 15 or 20 carries on the season, is he going to be able to turn that into 200 yards? You know what I mean? Is he going to be able to make a catch or two out of the backfield? Is he going to make some noise in the return game? Is it that type of thing? So, but yeah, Lawrence Papillon's good pick, but I'm right along there with you. I think it's, we kind of know what we have with Sheldon Evans. He kind of proved it last year that he can get the yardage. He can make some plays. So it's going to come down to just exactly like you said, Papillon or McDaniel, who gets the lion's share of those RB3 carries is the guy who's going to basically by default have the opportunity to be the breakout player. All right. Hot take time for the running back unit.
This one's pretty good too, I think. This is kind of a multiple part take as well.
Okay.
Maybe not. I don't know if it's as many parts as 3 parts as the offensive lineman was, but this one's pretty solid in its own right. So looking at it in terms of this, I wrote down Knox, Evans, and Papillon, but it's pretty much am just going to reword that as whoever is the top 3 running backs in the rotation. They will combine for 2,500 plus yards and 20 plus touchdowns this year between those 3 players. Now, I looked at it from last year, and they had over 2,500 rushing yards as a team, but it took 8 players to get that, and including quarterbacks and receivers and what have you. So I think it's only going to take 3 players to get that this year, and they're all going to be running backs. And it took 8 players as well to get 21 touchdowns on the ground last year, and I think they will get 20 plus with 3 players. So that's a pretty high bar, I think, but I think it's achievable. I mean, I think Knox will have probably somewhere between 1,500, 1,700 yards, something like that, if he stays healthy and plays like he did last year. I could see Evans in there getting 500-600 yards maybe, and then I could see Papillon get a couple hundred. So I mean, I haven't done the math on that, but I think that would definitely eclipse 2,500 yards, and I could see Knox getting 15 touchdowns. I could see Evans getting 5 or more. I could see Papillon getting a couple. So I think that's definitely doable. And it's going to be a reoccurring theme talking about the quarterback situation and the fact that they probably won't have a real big year through the air. That's going to put way more pressure on the running game. So I think that these numbers are more than doable given the situation and given the quality of players they have, because really Sheldon Evans could start for a lot of teams. I mean, he could. There's no doubt about it. But because he's behind Brendan Knox, he's number 2. So, but I think those guys can definitely help my hot take get met there.
Well, I can't believe we've gone through this whole breakdown. And even though the guy's not listed here, we have horribly failed to mention Xavier Gaines. Horribly failed. How the hell did we fail to mention Xavier Gaines? Yeah. Because he lines up all over the field. So he will line up, not necessarily as a running back. He might line up at running back. We don't know. But he will have rushing yards this year. So to say, 20 touchdowns, 2,500 yards, you might get that from Gaines and Knox and Evans. It's completely possible that could happen. So let's not forget, Herd fans, you also get to throw in the wild card of Xavier Gaines into the running back room on occasion.
Well, I think Herd fans have a different idea in mind for Xavier Gaines these days.
Well, I know that.
I'll leave it at that.
I know they do, but it still doesn't take away the fact that he will register rushing yards and he will register some rushing touchdowns. It will happen. Yeah. So it's still going to fall in that column. He might be lined up, at tight end officially on the roster, but so what? A rushing yard's a rushing yard. It goes to the team total, just like the touchdowns do. So don't forget that. You may end up with more. You may end up with closer to
3,000.
God, could you say 3,000 rushing yards?
I mean,
what?
Maybe.
That sounds maniacal, but at the same time, not that far-fetched.
No.
All right, so that was a wild last 2 minutes of discussion there. I can't believe that just popped into my head there at the very last moment. Whew, let me regroup from that. That was pretty astonishing. I did not think I would be talking about 3,000 rushing yards.
I didn't call that. I'm just saying we think it's possible.
When we started that, I did not think that number would be anywhere in my stratosphere right now. But it's funny how that materializes. All right, so it's time for some final thoughts. Let's do some final thoughts and get the heck out of here for this week. So Trey, start us off. Final thoughts this week.
Yep, I'm pumped for this offensive line. No matter when the season actually happens, if we get it, if we don't, whenever we get it, I'm excited for this offensive line. I think this is going to be the strength of Marshall's team like it's been the last 2 or 3 years. It's been the top, as far as I'm concerned, the top strength of the team has been the offensive line since about 2017 onwards. That's been the case. I think it's the case again. Really good line. I mean, literally 5 seniors starting. I mean, what more could you want in an offensive line? And not only are they're not just 5 seniors, they're 5 productive seniors. Like, they're 5 seniors that have played a lot of football, 5 seniors that have been through some battles. They're battle tested. They've been through the ringer of a conference schedule. They've, done all that stuff. So this line is extremely talented. I mean, there's no denying it. We could be looking at, like you said, not just 2 guys on the first team. We could be looking at 5 guys potentially on first and second team combined. I mean, we could see it could be that good. So Phil Stills, I think he really hit the nail on the head with that one, ranking him number 1 in the conference. I agree wholeheartedly. And I think they will live up to that reputation and then some. So they're going to have to honestly be probably better than they were last year and the year before, just because they got a new quarterback now that's going to be extremely inexperienced probably. They're going to have to lean on the running game more heavily, so that's going to put more pressure on the O-line in that regard as well. So it's a big year for the O-line, but I think that they will rise to the challenge, you could say. It's common football knowledge. When the running game's working, your offense is just running smoother. That's just the way it goes. I think that's the way it goes for every team in the country. Marshall's no exception. I mean, Marshall's offense over the last few years has been very spotty, very inconsistent, as we've mentioned. But the running games, you really can't question that. I mean, the last few years, look at some of the yardage they've been putting up, some of the single individual seasons they've had in the last few years. A lot of good players. And, of course, Brendan Knox last year, superstar year. I think we're going to see more of the same this year and then some, honestly. So, I mean, that's another strength. I mean, the running game's a big strength. There's no denying that. It's one of the two, the running game and the offensive line, which they kind of play hand in hand, are the best parts of the team, in my opinion. And I think most people would agree with that. And, you can't have one without the other. I mean, you can't have the big rushing yards without the offensive line opening up the holes, but you also can't have it if you don't have a good running back. So it works both ways. So I expect it to be the same this year. Brendan Knox is just going to be just another – he's a problem. He's just going to be a problem again. Sheldon Evans, really good number 2 running back. He's going to be a problem. Like we said, Xavier Gaines could be a problem running the ball more this year. Lawrence Papillon, Knowledge McDaniel, we don't know. Marshall, it seems like they always have a pretty good stable running backs. That's one thing that they've had a lot of is running backs depth over the last few years. I mean, over Doc's whole tenure. I mean, just starting back from the beginning till now, they've had 2 or 3 running backs pretty much consistently that they can count on. And it's the same this year. And this is a completely random thing I'm going to bring up, but like last year, and Brendan Knox, we were talking about how many yards or how many carries he got. Sometimes he got 30 plus carries in a game or two. Why did that man only have 10 carries against Boise State? I still, for the life of me, cannot figure that crap out. Like 10 carries for 70 whatever yards and a touchdown, and and that hits all the carries he got. And they lost 14-7. That's going to bug me that's going to bug me, man. That's awful. I still disagree with that wholeheartedly. That's crap. They should have given him more carries than that. If you're going to run the man into the ground, how about you give him a chance to go on the road and beat number 24 Boise State on their turf? How about that? But that's a whole side tangent of mine, and you know how I like doing that kind of stuff. So let's go, Brendan Knox all day.
Big Brendan Knox guy right here.
Brendan Knox guy, yeah.
All right. Let's throw some water on that fire for a second here and we cool you off. It's getting a little heated here in the final thoughts segment. Yeah, this is one you got to be excited about, man. I mean, drink it in. 5 seniors starting across the offensive line that's just rarefied air. And then when you talk about there are 2 more seniors on the 2 deep. So you're going 7 deep at senior on the offensive line. That's unbelievable. So this is something that just flat out doesn't happen that often. And you want to talk about continuity. You want to talk about chemistry. It may not be more important anywhere on a football team than on the offensive line, because if those dudes don't jive, nothing drives on the offense. So this is the year. This is the year, I guess, if you have to have a first-year quarterback.
Yeah,
this is the year to have it. You got a 5 senior offensive linemen starting and a unbelievably talented stable of running backs, not to mention a few versatile weapons outside as well. So what a good time to be alive if you're a Herd fan as far as the offensive line goes.
Yep.
So until we can get Steven in here, we're going to go ahead and take off. So Trace, you can just take us out all by yourself.
I get a solo one, huh? Oh, well, I'm going to leave it with 3 simple things. Follow the effing guidelines, wear your mask, go Herds.
Fair enough. Let's take COVID down so we can have a season. I'll see you soon with Steve. It's a Moonshine Throwdown podcast. Later.